I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Welcome everybody to the live stream. I'm going to talk for a little bit as we get started and wait for you guys in the chat to tell me, hey, we hear you. I prepped for this live stream much better than I prepped for the last one, where I started talking for like 3 minutes before I noticed that you guys couldn't hear me. So, yeah. And this one is in the middle of my day. I'm wide awake. I'm bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I am not. This is just water, not moonshine. And I'm doing this one in the middle of the day at 1 p.m. my time to say thanks to you guys out there in overseas for me, in the old world, as some of you call it. Yeah, I said in the live stream announcement that whenever I schedule it in the evening, which is the best time for me, but I get some complaints from people who say, oh, yeah, but it's no good for us. It's the middle of the night or first thing in the morning here in the UK or in Europe or, God forbid, over in Australia or New Zealand or the Pacific Isles. And I thought, well, how many of you guys are there really? And I went and looked at my analytics, and yeah, like 40% of my viewers are non-US, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I can't just blow those guys off. Not that I was going to blow you off anyway, but I'd like to point out that this is, I think, my 5th live stream since I went full-time in the beginning of January, and I've done like 3 in the evening and 2 in the daytime. So it's not like I'm giving you guys the shaft. We're almost 50-50. So I am going to be taking your questions. I'm going to be taking your questions in the chat. Hello, chat. I see you there. I'm going to be taking your questions in the super chat, which, hold on a second. Let me just, oh, here we go. So here's your chat. Yeah. And the super chat is a special window popped out to the side where if you choose to use this little button right here, instead, when you send your chat, you can send me a couple bucks, as much as you want, and your question will get popped out. It's just a little way that you can give me a tip. I'm going to answer all the questions. I don't really preferentially, well, I definitely make sure I get all the super chats, but I try to answer as many questions as I can, regardless of whether you tip me. And then over here on the left, I've got my my Patreon page pulled up to answer questions specifically from the patrons as well. So that's what we're going to be doing. But I'm going to start with just a little bit of a talk in to let everybody get into the chat and get warmed up. And the first thing I want to talk about in this is so I got a chat or a comment this morning on my YouTube page saying, can you freaking believe it? Stu from UAV Futures posted a video where he thanked his patrons and his I don't know, everybody who watches his channel. He thanked them for he bought a house. So he moved, I guess he was renting, and he bought a house. And he posted a video talking about how, you know, the UAV Futures has grown to the point where it just doesn't fit in his house. He had to get a bigger place. And he said, thank you, you know, to everybody who helped him do this. And this person, who I'm not going to call out, but they don't deserve that, but this person was really upset. Like, they were like, the people who support Stu, he says, you know, give UAV Futures money so I can make more content. They didn't buy him a house. They didn't give him the money for that. And I got a little bit of this actually a long time ago when I first started doing Patreon. Like the second month after I did Patreon, my truck died. The engine on my truck just died, and basically the truck was scrapped. It went to auction, and we had to buy a new car on the spur of the moment. We didn't really have savings. We had anyway, and it was really nice. We suddenly had a car payment when we hadn't had one before. And it just so happened that the amount of the car payment was exactly equal to the amount of my Patreon at that time. And I posted a little video saying, it's really nice. Thank you guys. It really was a load off to be able to do that. And I got some blowback from that, the same way that Stu got a little bit of blowback for his video. And I thought, if he didn't have a house, he couldn't make videos. So this idea that people are, there seems to be an idea that what we do, and I guess I'm not unbiased because this is my full-time job too now, so I kind of know where he's coming from. This idea that we're just kind of making videos in our spare time. No, this is a full-time job, and people deserve to get paid for the full-time job. They deserve to get, everybody who works deserves to get paid and deserves to have a place to live and, food and cable TV if that's what you're into, and what all the things that we want from life. And so if there's somebody like Stu who is putting in, I guarantee you he puts in more than 40 hours a week working on this stuff. I know I do. I love it. I'm not complaining. I'm immensely thankful. But at the same time, if he posts, hey, thank you guys, because of your support, I was able to, buy a house, have a place to live. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing sleazy about that. He didn't misappropriate that money. The people who give him money are paying his salary. They're not just giving him money to make videos off. And I said, you know what? If he didn't have a place to live and was on the street, how many videos would he be making? So yeah. I see some people in the chat making comments about things they don't like about Stu. I'm not here to pick on Stu. You like Stu, you don't like Stu. I'm not here to start shit about that. But the specific issue of YouTubers monetizing, anyway, especially if you're full-time, you're putting in full-time, then whatever you spend that money on, obviously you guys also have the perspective as donors to decide whether you personally want to give money to somebody. And if you see somebody running around with, gold teeth and a Ferrari, maybe you decide, hey, that's not where you want to put your money. I don't know anybody who's doing that, but I don't want to, yeah. Anyway, so that's that. Pardon me. I have something else that I'm going to talk about before I get to your questions, and that is we're going to do a giveaway in this live stream. And here's the giveaway item. This is the giveaway I'm going to do. I'm not going to do the giveaway during the live stream. I'm going to do the giveaway like normal. I'll talk more about exactly how I'm going to do the giveaway. This is a Newbeedrone Acrobee. I've been flying my Newbeedrone Acrobee and really enjoying it. Especially with Project Mockingbird, which is the new way of tuning and tweaking to get Betaflight to fly as good as an Inductrix or as a Tiny Whoop. But I needed to get some parts, and I was talking to Newbeedrone about some parts I needed, and they sent me the parts, and they said, oh, hey, why don't we throw an Acrobee in here for you to give away? So I decided to give it away on the stream. I will talk about how to enter the giveaway. You could probably guess if you're later in the stream. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a giveaway for this. Yep. I'm tempted to do the giveaway and just say, we'll do the giveaway at the end of the stream, but I don't like playing stupid little games like that where I kind of force you guys. I like to make it easy. I just like giving stuff away. Anyway, so, yeah. Pardon me. Look at this. What's that? What's that right there? Oh, yeah. Crossfire's coming, you guys. I have been scrambling to get a bunch of stuff that I've had on my bench backed up, cleared out, so I can move on and start making Crossfire content. I'm almost there, and I'm going to start making that content this week or next. I've got a bunch of other exciting stuff coming up on my channel that I'm going to tell you about, and then we'll get into the questions. Neil Whiteley from Catalyst Machine Works just sent me 2 quads. They're in the mail right now. They are 2 America quads that he hand-built and lovingly tuned. One of them on 6S with low KV motors, and one of them on 4S with high KV motors. So this whole question that's been going around, 6S, so multi-GP just went unrestricted voltage for the 2018 season. And our hometown hero here in Knoxville, Evan Turner, who's definitely the fastest pilot in Knoxville, and could be one of the definitely is one of the fastest in the U.S. or the world. He just gotten some 6S packs and he's just like, forget it, never looking back. He loves it. So I'm looking forward to, I'm going to get him to fly these, because you give me America quad, I'm just not that fast. So I'm going to get him to ring them out for me. And if you look at the video I posted to my channel this morning, that is Evan flying one of his quads with a stick overlay, by the way. I got him to give me a black box. He is fast as heck. And so we're going to be doing that. Yeah, a whole lot of other exciting stuff coming up on the channel. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's get to your questions. I've already got some super chats coming in. And I'm going to, let's see. There are a bunch of people just sending a euro. Wow, neat. Sending some euros, sending some bucks. Thanks to you guys. One of the questions is, what is the current state of F7 flight controllers in Betaflight? I'm so glad you asked that. Hold on one second. Where is it? There it is. Here it is. This is the Betaflight F7. I just wanted to like have something to hold up. You guys can see. Although it's super duper heat sealed. Oh great, two bags, not just one. Oh, here we go. This is the Betaflight F7. And I've had this for a little while, and I haven't gotten around to reviewing it. So here, thank you for sending it to me. FPV Model sent me this. And I've wondered, like, what should I say about F7s? I think I'm ready to make the video. I just haven't got to it yet. So I'll do it right here. I have said that I don't think there's a compelling reason to go to F7. Up before Betaflight 3.3 came out and the new Kalman filters and all that stuff, I said, I just don't think there's nothing really there. We're not taking advantage of the additional processor cycles. And there aren't a lot of F7 boards to choose from. There are more now than there were like 2 months ago, but there still aren't a ton. So I feel like you might make some compromises going with an F7 just because you don't have a huge amount of choice. But the argument was that there's nothing to do with the additional processor cycles, so why bother? You're going to run it, 1% utilization instead of 5%. Who cares? And now that we're going to 32 kilohertz sampling with the new filters, whether it's the Kalman filter or the biquad FIR filter or any of that stuff, the argument is, oh, well, now do we need the faster processor? But here's the deal. Here's the dirty secret, if you could call it that. Betaflight is not optimized for the F7 architecture. There is something different about the F7 processor that means when you take the Betaflight code and you run it on the F7, it actually is slower today on Betaflight 3.3. It is slower than an F4. If you go and you take the same code, you'll get higher processor utilization. And even the devs don't know why that is. I was talking last night with Andrei Mironov. He goes by Dshot, and he's one of the devs. And he said he's working on it. That is not going to change for Betaflight 3.3. That is targeted for Betaflight 3.4. So at least with Betaflight 3.3, I still feel like there is not a compelling reason to go for an F7. Especially if what you want to do is you want to play with the 32 kilohertz sampling and the new filters. The F7 is actually worse at that than the F4, especially because the F4, you have the option to overclock. F7 doesn't currently support overclocking. So, and what are the advantages of the F7? Well, you get additional UARTs, but you can find some F4s with like 5 UARTs now. The Maytech F405 has 5 UARTs. And there's the inversion problem, but a well-designed board will solve those problems for you. So I think for a lot of people, an F4 is still the way to go. That's the answer there. Thank you for that question, Kausper. Heart of America FPV gives $5 in the super chat and asks, I'm having buddy box issues on 2 X90 Plus radios. No movement on the trainer page on the master. I'm afraid, I would love to help you with that, but I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to talk you through that just by guessing here on the live stream. So I appreciate your donation and I acknowledge your question, but I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to answer it. So, Rex Skyknight asks, I have an X7S. Do you think I should upgrade to the X9D Plus? I'll tell you what. I think the FrSky X7S with the upgraded Hall effect gimbals may be the best value for money in a transmitter today. I think it comes in like $180, whereas the X9D Plus comes in at, I think it's like $50 more. I'm roughing it here, but if you're happy with the X7S, I don't think you should upgrade. I personally like the form factor of the X7 better. It's a little fatter and it's a little narrower. I don't like as much the flat and wide form factor of the X7, but I'm not sure I would pay $50 more to get rid of it. So Viper FPV asks in the regular chat, should I get the X10S? I'm happy to tell you guys I have finished my review of the X10S. It is uploaded. It's sitting on YouTube right now, and it's going to come out at the end of this week. And I'm going to give a little plug to my email list. So hang on. So I have an email list. I don't spam you. About once every 1 or 2 weeks, I send a little article I've written, something I think you'll find interesting, or and you can sign up right here on my website, right on the front page. My website's fpvknowitall.com, and you can sign up, join my mailing list. And the reason I'm mentioning that right now is that I'm going to give my mailing list an early look at my review of the X10 and the X10S. I'm going to let them see the video like a day or two early. So if you want to buy it before it sells out, because it seems like when I release a review, I'll tell you what, it's not like the X12 where I just hated everything about it. It's a generally positive review. So if I release it and it sells out, you maybe want to get it early, go sign up for my mailing list, and you'll get an early look at that video. Holy mackerel. Anton, I'm going to try to say your name right, Anton Mukin. Anton Mukin gave 100 RUB. I don't know what those are. There was 100 of them. Is that good? Let's see what they are. It is Russian rubles. It's not as good as I hoped when I saw the number 100. He asks, counterclockwise versus clockwise, counterclockwise motors. Can I just put lock nuts on them? That's up to you. If your motors all spin the same direction, then when you block a prop, the nut will tend to spin off of the ones that are spinning the wrong direction. Nylocks help, but having cross-threaded, reverse-threaded shafts helps even more. That's just up to you. Ascor asks, hey, I just made my first quad, but I have a problem when I'm trying out my motors. If in the motor tabs or with the receiver, the motor starts spinning, but after 5 seconds, the ESC just beeps. There's a new, I've been hearing this, Ascor, there's a new thing that's been done. I think it's an ESC thing where the ESC turns off after a second, and I don't actually know what the conditions are that trigger it. But you're not the first person I've heard to say this. The key thing you did right is you tested in the motors tab. So if the quad is like having problems with disarming, like for example, the anti-TAS protection has been tripping up a lot of people. That's an anti-flip out. Like if you've got your props on wrong and your quad is gonna flip out, well, it'll disarm the quad. But if you're spinning the props, if you're spinning the motors from the motors tab in Betaflight, there's no arming, there's no disarming. It's just, you're just pushing the gas. And at that point, if the motor stops spinning, you know for a fact it's the ESC doing it. I don't know what that is. And if anybody in chat knows what it is that's new in maybe BL Heli, or that causes the ESC to just shut down after like 5 seconds, then post it in the chat. Somebody asked, am I going to be at Quad Camp in Sarasota? Yes, I am going to be at Quad Camp in Sarasota. That is confirmed. I was not at Quad Camp in Vegas. There was a last-minute change of plans that they were not able to bring me out. So I hope that went well. I wish them the best. I know there were a couple people who said they were disappointed they didn't get to see me there. You know, that's something that was out of my hands. But I'm definitely 100% confirmed for Sarasota. The bottom line is I'm driving to Sarasota, and I'm going to be there. And if they tell me they don't want me there, I'm still going to show up. Screw them. No, but yeah, there was just a logistical issue that we weren't able to solve that meant that I couldn't get out. Samuel asks, does anybody know something about the Falcon FGO1 goggles? That is, let me show you a picture of these. Falcon FGO1. Let me find a picture of them for you. Those are some new goggles that are coming out. Those are these goggles. Flysight Falcon. By the way, good for you for naming your goggle the Falcon. It's not like there isn't already a quadcopter named the Falcon. Way to go. Make it hard for us to search for these things. But these are, I got asked by Banggood if I wanted to review these. And I initially said, I'm so tired of reviewing cheap goggles that are shitty and terrible. And I said, no, but when I looked at them, they don't look that bad, and so I'm going to give them a chance. I am going to review them, but they're on back order right now. Whenever I get them, I will review them. The other thing you guys might be asking about, a lot of people are asking about the EV200 goggles, if I'm going to review them. I also have them on back order, and when I get them, I'll review them. I am curious about them. You guys think these vendors send me stuff like early, and sometimes that happens, but a lot of time I get this equipment from like Banggood, who graciously sends it to me, as opposed to like Eachine, who, like, I don't know, they don't always send out early review copies. I am, let's see. 3D Drengan asks, my drone just flipped and my FC died. Why did it do that? My FC is dead and I'm sad. Please help. That is a common story with the Wizard. The Wizard comes with this Chinese clone SP Racing F3 flight controller, and that is terrible. It's the $15 SP Racing F3 that you can buy from Banggood. Do not buy it. It dies. It just dies at the drop of a hat for no freaking reason. There you go. That's what I would say about that. If it's any other flight controller, I don't know. I mean, sometimes they die. Somebody asked, what's in that drone drop behind you? I put that there for a reason. So I actually was approached by Drone Drop, and they said, do you want to review our boxes? And I said, I don't know about that. I mean, I said, here's what I'll do. I will do unboxings for you. So they're going to send me the drone drop every month, and I'm going to do an unboxing, and I'm just going to show you guys what's in it. And the first one is coming up, I think, before the 27th is when he asked me to do it. So that's coming up. And if there's something good in it, then I'll say it's good. But I'm not like doing a review exactly. And, of course, I said to him, well, look, come on. Let's do giveaways, right? You want to do giveaways? So in addition to doing an unboxing of the drone drop, I'm also going to be doing some giveaways each month. Somebody's going to get a free drone. A couple people are going to get a free drone drop. So look forward to that. That's probably coming this week. Tornado Girl FPV asks, how does having endpoints slightly above and below 1,000 and 2,000 affect the flight? The answer, so you may know that your endpoints for your transmitter are supposed to be at 1,000 on the bottom and 2,000 on the top. And you look in the receiver tab in Betaflight and you deflect the stick left and right, up and down, and that's what you should see. If your endpoints are slightly outside that range, what it means is that you'll have deadband at the end of your stick travel. So you will reach full rate before you reach the end of the stick. That's the answer to that. You guys are begging me to talk about the Clearview module. Yes. Here it is. It does exist. I actually have not even taken it out of the box yet. Literally, this is the first time I've done it. It does exist. It is a thing. Ta-da! There it is. Oh, a little focus problem there. There it is. What's there to say? Here it is. I haven't tried it yet. I've got to get it in the goggles, and so I'll probably do an installation video, and then I'm going to test it, and I'm going to use this. I want to get this, and I want to get LaForge V4, and then I got a couple of other goggles that I've had on the bench that I need to like do some range testing on and so forth. But yep. I'm looking forward to it, but I don't have anything to say about it right now because I haven't tried it yet. Sir Benny gives €5 and asks, Bardwell, I deactivated the MSB VCP, can't access the board or flash in bootloader mode. What can I do? Driver fixture doesn't find the FC. So what you're talking about, hang on, I got to get a flight controller. Oh, this Acrobee that we're going to be giving away, I'm going to tell you how to enter later in the stream. You could probably guess how to enter if you're... this one probably has a VCP flight controller. Hold on. Boom. There we go. I'm going to... Betaflight. Hang on. I got to start Betaflight now. So what you're talking about is this. You went into your ports tab, you knucklehead. And here on the USB VCP port, you disabled the MSP option, which means you can no longer connect to your flight controller over USB. You can see that by default, Betaflight usually does have MSP also enabled on UART 1. So if you have an FTDI adapter, you can get in that way, or you need to put it in bootloader mode and you need to reflash it. That is the answer. Now you say that you can't get it into bootloader mode, and the ultimate workaround there is to push the bootloader button on the flight controller, and it should go into bootloader mode. I mean, the board will go into bootloader mode. You can look at the LEDs on the board, and you can confirm that it's in bootloader mode. The LED will be solid and not flashing. And then if you still can't get the Impulse RC driver fixer to see it, then it must be your drivers that aren't right. So that's the answer. Ginge FPV asks, Josh, would you ever join the Rotor Riot channel crew as a regular? Your video with Drew was pretty good. People are telling me that we had a lot of chemistry there. I really enjoyed it. I like hanging out with him. We're both kind of weirdos. I wear a skirt. He has purple hair and wears eyeliner. I felt like we got along. He's a little... I think we both annoy each other just enough that there's some tension there. I think that kind of actually makes for good chemistry. Yeah, we want to do more videos, and I want to work with those guys some more because I really believe in what they're doing with Quad Camp. You know, when people found out I was doing Quad Camp, some people were angry and said, I can't believe you would do anything with those guys. The bridge dive was totally over the line. And I agree that the bridge dive was a mistake. I wish the bridge dive had never happened, but I'm not going to, if they're doing something right with Quad Camp, which I really feel that they are, then I'm not going to say, no, screw you guys. The bridge dive, you're dead to me. I'm not going to do that. What they're doing with Quad Camp is exactly what I try to do with my YouTube channel, which is help you guys learn about this stuff, solve your problems. And it's so great that somebody like Rotor Riot and Chad Capper, and they're throwing their resources behind it. I want to keep doing that kind of thing for sure. And we'll probably do more videos together too. Let me jump over to my Patreon and answer some of the questions from my patrons. I have some of them. Let me reload the page, make sure I'm looking at the most up-to-date stuff. Yeah, there's like 12 comments. That's not too bad. Over on my Patreon, Wes Seeley asks, if an accelerometer goes bad, is the whole board bad? So if the accelerometer goes bad, the board isn't bad because the accelerometer is only used in auto level mode. So you could disable all those auto level functions and still have a perfectly functional board, assuming you don't need auto level. But if the accelerometer has gone bad, the gyro probably isn't long for this world either, and the flight controller may just be done. If my motors stutter or jitter during hover, is this fixable by tuning, or could something be faulty? So motors that kind of twitch and stutter, the quad will be hovering and then suddenly, it's usually on the yaw axis as well, although it can be on the other axes. That means that too much vibration or electrical noise is getting into the gyro. The way to solve that is to eliminate the vibration. You can soft mount the flight controller. If you've got like a bad motor shaft or something, that could be causing it. But then also too much electrical vibration, electrical noise could be getting in. So adding capacitors to the ESCs of the flight controller could be causing it. There are a few you could have just a damaged flight controller. The nuclear option is to replace the flight controller. If that doesn't work, you may need to move to a different flight controller. Like, for example, the Maytech F405 all-in-one, the original one, the version 1 of it, had a lot of problems with electrical noise, and a lot of people just couldn't solve it at all. So, Rab FPV, your question's so interesting, I'm going to jump away from the Patreon. I can't use turtle mode properly because my frame is low enough that all 4 props are in the grass. What can I do? I've seen some people who have put 3D printed shark fins on the back of their quad, so that when the quad is upside down in the grass, 2 props are always up. That's the answer to that. And it looks pretty freaking cool too. Raj says no accelerometer, no turtle mode. I'm not sure why that is. Turtle mode will activate when the quad is upside down. Anyway. Yeah, Audio Geek. The problem with the twitches is it's so hard to tell if you have a mechanical problem that you're just not aware of. So ultimately, if you can't solve the yaw twitches with like soft mounting the flight controller, with with capacitors, then you just start swapping, like you swap your motors and you cross your fingers. I actually have a build right now that has that problem. I did the PID tuning on the build, and only after I did the PID tuning did I see the yaw twitches in the high def footage. I actually didn't see them in the FPV footage. So I'm actually going to be trying to solve this problem. I hope I'm able to solve it. Going back to the Patreon, Eric Sandborg says, you know, some of us have day jobs. We can't all be lucky enough to be able to run an awesome channel full time. Yeah, Eric, the thing is, no matter what time I do it, Eric, it's going to be a bad time for somebody. This is for all the, you know, the Europeans and the overseas people and the people who are watching at work. I know you're out there. I have, you know, some of my streams are at night. Some of them are during the day. You can watch the DVR and you can, you know, that's no problem. Lewis Pollock asks, are there any plans in the future for a JBF4 version 2 with a better 5-volt regulator? The fact that the current board won't run my unified 5-volt higher than 200 milliwatts is my only gripe. So if you can't, the regulator on my board, the 5-volt regulator is 1.2 amps, and you should be able to run, I mean, I think the unified 5-volt pulls like 600 milliamps or something at full, I don't know. But I think you should be able to run a Unify as long as you're not doing a whole bunch of other stuff on that 5-volt regulator. I do want to point something out. This is a problem that somebody had. They were trying to wire up the Unify Nano. That's the new really, really freaking small Unify. And they had wired the Unify Nano to this 5-volt pad right here. You can't see my mouse. Hold on. Why can't you see? Hold on. Now you can see my mouse. Oh, there we go. So they had wired it up to this 5-volt pad right here. And here's what the problem is with that. This 5-volt pad is intended for the receiver. And so this 5-volt pad gets power when you're plugged into USB. And that lets you power up the receiver without having to plug in your battery. And that's nice because you can bind your receiver, you can test your endpoints and all that stuff without having to plug your battery in on the bench. But here's the thing. That 5-volt pad has a diode that protects the board from getting power from the USB port. And that diode introduces a small amount of voltage drop. And what it means is that the 5-volt pad for the receiver on my flight controller is actually only about 4.75 volts, 4.8 volts. That's just the effect of the diode that's necessary. So if you try to run like a Unify Nano or a Unify Pro off that 5-volt pad, it's not going to run well. It's going to brown out because it's not getting the voltage that it needs. If you want to run, you need to use either, you can use the 5-volt pad on the underside of the board. Hang on. So there's a 5-volt pad on the underside of the board here, and that should be at about 5.1, 5.15 volts. And then the other thing you can do is you can use the Buzzer Plus pad, which is actually also a 5-volt pad if you want to wire to the top of the board. But don't use this pad for anything except the receiver because it's not designed for that. Ken Jansef asks, I asked a question last time, but you probably missed it. Sorry about that, Ken. I had a question about capacitors on flight controllers. I'm not going to be a multi-GPU racer anytime soon, but I'm still learning. Will a capacitor help me with my builds, or should I not worry about it till I get better? I don't put capacitors on any of my builds unless I see signs that I need them, like video noise or yaw twitches. A lot of the builds that I do are clean enough that it's not an issue. A capacitor will not help you fly better. It'll help clean up video noise or get rid of yaw twitches or that kind of thing. So that's the answer. What is the best soft mount? I have a video about that. If you search for Joshua Bardwell soft mount, you'll probably find it. I think the best kind of soft mount are the rubber standoffs. If you have a flight controller like this Betaflight F7 that I showed earlier that has the gummies, those are pretty good as well. I don't usually double up if I've got the gummies. I don't also use the soft mounts. I don't think it would hurt. But the other thing about this one is that this one actually has the gyro soft mounted, which is really nice. I first saw this on the Holybro Kakute F4. And they've got it soft mounted, but the Betaflight board actually, and this is the same, I think this is actually based on an Omnibus, because it's got the dual gyros and it looks just like the Omnibus that has the dual gyros. They got this actually in a little protective plastic cover as well to keep anything from bumping it. So that's nice. But yeah, I think if you have the gummies, that's good. Rubber standoffs are great. let's see here. Benji School asks, could you go into the hopefully temporary split that has happened with Butterflight? So in case you don't know, let me get this webpage up here. In case you don't know, there's a thing out there right now called Butterflight. It's like Betaflight, but with butter. It's Apologine sponsored it. And what Butterflight does is, so there was Kalen Dorr contributed to Betaflight his Kalman filter code. And a Kalman filter is this super fancy filter that has some features that he's not using. And basically what that means is that the Kalman filter that Kalen gave to Betaflight, it actually simplifies down into a simpler kind of filter, which is what Betaflight has now. The Betaflight Devs, the Kalman filter actually was really processor intensive, and they had to overclock the CPU on the board to get it to run at decent processor utilization. And they said, well, there's this simpler kind of filter we can use that doesn't have the functionality of the Kalman, but you're not using that functionality anyway. And the goal, some people took this as like a personal affront to Kalen or a slap in the face of Raceflight or something, but that's not what it was. The Betaflight devs need to be able to put out software that works on lots of different hardware, and they didn't want people to have to overclock and risk overheating and damaging their board in order to do it. So that's the filter that's in Betaflight right now. It's called Biquad RC Plus Fear. I'm going to be doing some content about that. I had a great conversation with one of the devs getting the skinny on it, and I'm going to be working on that content coming soon. But some people want to try the original Kalman filter. They say, well, look, maybe the Kalman filter is better and you guys just didn't test it long enough. And they want to be able to do the comparison. And that's what Butterflight is. So Butterflight started as just a version of Betaflight that still has the Kalman filter in it. So you can go back and forth between the Kalman filter and the Biquad Fear filter that is in Betaflight right now. But then these guys were like, hey, you know what? I think we're going to do a little bit more. And so this is actually, it seems like it's becoming a fork almost, just like Betaflight was originally a fork. Oops, sorry about that, guys. Just like Betaflight was originally a fork of CleanFlight, right? And these guys said, hey, look, you know, Betaflight started out as this place to try all this experimental stuff, but now it's kind of like the standard, and it's not as experimental as it once was. So these guys have suggested that they're going to kind of try to keep Butterflight a little bit more cutting edge, a little bit more experimental. So that's what Butterflight is. You were asking, though, could you go into the hopefully temporary split that has happened with Butterflight? Well, I mean, you know, there's nothing stopping you from forking an open source project, and I mean, you know, more power to them. S. Grace asks, any plans on a trip to Europe anytime soon? Not specifically. I will tell you that there was a poll that Kevin Doherty, Stinger Swarm, did asking, whoever did it. There was a poll, I think, in the Rotor Riot group or the Quad Camp group asking, what city would you like to see a quad camp in? And if my memory is correct, London was one of the top ones. So if I did make a trip to Europe, maybe it would be to do a quad camp in London. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying I saw the results of the poll and it was way up there. So, yeah. Let's see here. Nitro, I reviewed. Nitro asks, what's your thoughts on the focus frame from Rocket City FPV? Nitro, I actually reviewed that frame in the context of my review of the Motolab Typhoon flight controller. So if you search for Joshua Bardwell focus frame or Joshua Bardwell Motolab Typhoon, you should find it. Yep. Let's see. What do you recommend in Betaflight for the best in OSD between main bat voltage and average cell voltage? So the Betaflight OSD has the ability to show you the battery voltage, but it also has the ability to show you the cell voltage. And the cell voltage is nice because, you know, you should really be thinking about the health of your battery in terms of cell voltage. So for 4S batteries, like at 14 volts, it's like the lowest I like them to go. But that only tells you about 4S. What if you had 3S? And what I always end up having to do is I just go 14 divided by 4 to give me the cell voltage, and then I multiply by 3 or 5 to get the voltage for the other cell. But it's better to think about your batteries in terms of 3.7 volts per cell, 3.8 volts per cell. You know, 4.2 volts is a full charge, 3.5 volts is as low as I like to go. And Betaflight can show you the cell voltage instead of the pack voltage. Now, here's the thing. Betaflight can't actually know what your cell voltage is because it doesn't have a sensor that like plugged into the balance lead to let it actually measure the cell voltage. So what it does is it just takes your pack voltage and it divides by the number of cells that it thinks you have, and that's what it shows you as the cell voltage. It's not really showing you the cell voltage. It's just estimating. Which is nice. The only problem I have with that is that sometimes if my battery is fully charged or if I'm using a high volt battery, Betaflight misreads the cells. So I plug in a fully charged high volt battery and it thinks it's a 5 cell that's almost completely discharged. At that point, the cell voltage would be completely wrong because it's just taking the pack voltage and dividing by the number of cells. If it misguesses the number of cells, it's gonna get that wrong. So that's the only problem I have with the cell voltage. Let's see. Fuzzwad, I just talked about Butterflight. You're going to have to go back and watch the DVR. What's the best way to charge a QX7 battery without having to unplug it off the board every time? I'll show you my answer to that. I actually have. I feel like I'm pretty clever for thinking of this, but I'm really not. It's just using something for how it's intended. This is my ultimate FPV shopping list, and if you don't know this exists, people are always asking me, what's the best flight controller? What's the best ESC? And I finally, instead of typing it out every time, I just made a website. And this website, hang on, let me go back. Let me just go to the main page. Here's the main page. It's at FPVKnowItAll.com, and I've got sections for basically almost everything. I'm constantly working on a little bit more. Like I want to add a section for micro quads. I want to add a section for ready to flies, but these things take time. What I want to show you here is the best way to charge the QX7. And I use this for my Taranis as well. What I like to use is this. This little guy will charge through the balance lead. It charges only through the balance lead. So you don't need to plug in the main discharge lead. So you pop the back off of your radio and you plug the balance connector in to this guy. It charges it up. It's slow, but you just leave it plugged in overnight and you're fine. So that's what I like to use. You can find it here on my FPV shopping list over at fpvknowitall.com. Sam asks, can you do a video on the new 3.3 release candidate and how to set up the filters? Sam, yes, I'm going to do a video on the new filters. Here's the thing, guys. I like to be cutting edge and get you guys the latest information. But the busier I have got, the more selective I have to be about what I cover and when I cover it. I just have so much content to make. And people ask, how do you make so much content? Because I put out a lot of videos. And one way I do it is that I have to be really efficient. So, for example, I did the video about putting OpenTX on the Horus when I got a Horus and when I needed to put it on there. And now I did the video about LUA Scrips on the Taranis because I needed to update my Taranis to run Crossfire. So it all sort of fits together in a sequence. I do the LUA scripts to run Crossfire. I do the Crossfire to do a long distance build. If I wanted to do a long distance build, I couldn't just do one today because there's like 3 other things I want to cover that have to be handled first. And one of the things I have to do to be efficient is I can't make videos about stuff that's going to change rapidly, because when I make the video, then it's going to be around for 6 months and going to get 50,000 views. And if there's something in it that's wrong, it's going to, number one, mislead a lot of people. Or number two, I'm going to be getting comments from smartasses going, this is wrong. And I'm going to be going, I know, it was right at the time that I released the video. And then I just got to make another video. So I want to make a video about the filters in Betaflight 3.3. But we're still in the release candidate. Things are still changing. And if I make the video today, it's going to be wrong in a week, and then the time is going to be wasted. So I will make it, but only as we get closer to final release or after final release. Let's see here. Austin Pereira, the data entry I was doing the other day was very inefficient. Some of you guys saw my impromptu live stream where I was testing, I was entering black box data by hand because the black box decode wasn't working. Really, it was just a trick to get you guys to solve the problem for me. I knew that if you guys saw me doing it by hand, one of you smart people would solve it, and you did. No, really, it was 1 in the morning and I was typing numbers into a spreadsheet and my mind was going insane. And I thought it would be cute to live stream it and at least get some company. Borg RC, could you do some cold weather testing of lipos? I might do. If you go look over at lipobench.com, they've done some testing of the effect of temperature. The bottom line is that temperature significantly affects lipo performance. You want to have your lipos warm. If you're in an area where it's cold, it's winter, have your lipos in the car. You can even get Hobby King sells a heated lipo bag. You plug it into a lipo, interestingly enough. You plug it into a 3-cell lipo, or you plug it into something like your car's, I guess if you had your car, you wouldn't need it though. But you plug it into like a 12-volt source and it keeps the batteries warm. You absolutely need to do that. And especially if you're racing or competitive, I've heard of some competitive racers actually warming their batteries above ambient, even if it's like 70 degrees outside. They'll warm them up to 90 degrees just to get a little bit more juice out of them. Rob Blackwood asks, does Betaflight need to read the RSSI signal before it will show stick movement in the radio tab? I can't get any movement in the radio tabs. No. Betaflight, all it needs to see is the S-bus signal. That's it. If you don't see stick movement in the radio tab, then and you're sure your transmitter is bound. So the first thing to do is look in your transmitter at the channel monitor screen. That's the screen that shows you the stick positions that the transmitter perceives, and it shows you the output on the channels, really. So you want to see that the transmitter is putting out the channel information. And then if the receiver is bound and you still don't see anything in the receiver tab when you go to Betaflight, either Betaflight's not configured correctly or your wiring is wrong. That's the broad strokes. You just got to figure out which one of those two things that is. Will I do a BL Heli 32 guide? I want to do that. One of my most popular videos is BL Heli 100% Explained, where I go through all the BL Heli options. It just never seems to make it to the top of the list of things that I have to do. I really want to do it, but I haven't got to it. Astro Mittens says, if you had to race one pilot, who would you race? I'm a terrible racer. I enjoy racing. It's not my favorite. I like doing it occasionally, but I'm a terrible racer, so I would not want to take the opportunity of wasting a top racer's time to do that. But if I could fly freestyle with one guy, who would I fly freestyle with? Because I love freestyle. Who would I like to fly freestyle with? You know what I would love to do? I'm going to tell you the true answer. I would like to meet Stickman and go fly with him. If you don't know Stickman FPV, go look him up on YouTube. He is not just a cool pilot, but he's a really interesting filmmaker, and he has some awesome stuff. And my reason for wanting to do that is not exactly because he's my favorite freestyle pilot. I think Johnny is probably my favorite freestyle pilot just because everything he does blows my freaking mind. But just having watched the films he makes, he seems like the kind of person who'd be kind of cool to hang out with. So that's my answer. When is F.port coming out? Asks Vern Kelk. I don't know the answer. You can fly. So it's in Betaflight 3.3 has support for it. So that's coming soon. But as far as the FrSky side, when will they ship receivers with F.port? I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, the other thing about going to visit Stickman would be that I would then be down under. So I don't know exactly where he lives. Does he live in Australia? But as long as I was down in that area, I could go visit Stu. I could go over to Tokoroa and visit Bruce and just meet. I could visit Final Glide. He lives down there. I could go visit all my Aussie and Kiwi FPV heroes. So let's see here. Have you noticed a change, going back to my patrons here, have you noticed a change that will allow you to arm your quad when it's connected to Betaflight with a battery connected? So Betaflight 3.3 has a couple changes that are tripping people up. And one of the changes is that you can no longer arm your quad when you're connected to the configurator. If you go look at the arming status flags, you'll get an MSP arming status flag. Pardon me. That is intentional. It's a safety feature. If you want to work around that, you go to the Motors tab and you check the My Props Are Off button. And once you do that, you can arm the quad. But by default, Betaflight 3.3 does not let you arm the quad when you're connected to the configurator. That's a safety thing. There's no way to turn that off as far as I know, except by going to the motors tab and checking the my props are off button. Yeah. Nick Freeman asks, planning a 7-inch freestyle long-range quad, thinking about adding a GPS with return to home if I fail-safe. Any thoughts? Sounds good to me. I'm interested in doing that as well. Maybe. I mean, I'm interested in a lot of things, so don't hold your breath. I'm also, if I were to do a long-range build today, I think I would want to use the DJI OcuSync system. So I did a review about the DJI goggles RE and the OcuSync system. One of the things OcuSync has, so OcuSync is a long-range digital video FPV system, right? And one of the things it can do is you can use your buddy box cable to connect your transmitter to the goggles. And then the goggles will transmit your control, your stick inputs over the digital long range link, and the OcuSync device outputs S-Bus to your flight controller. I would be really curious to try that out because I kind of didn't like OcuSync for racing. I kind of reviewed OcuSync from the perspective of, is it good for racing? Or freestyle, because that's what my audience is about. My audience isn't really full of Phantom or Mavic pilots. But I am curious to try that and see how it works. And I think it'd be really interesting to maybe compare that to like Crossfire, which also is a long distance link. So Loose Prop FPV asks, can't get ESC beeper working on a switch. The aux channel is working. The blue light flashes. Set Dshot 05 is done. So you've checked everything that you should check. Number one, in the modes tab, you confirm that in the modes tab, confirm that the mode goes yellow when you flip the switch. You said you see the blue light flashing on the flight controller. That also indicates that the flight controller is trying to beep. You also did the thing in the command line where you do set Dshot beeper tone equals 1, right? You said you did that. There's a command line option you need to do to enable the Dshot beeper. At that point, if the motors aren't beeping, I'm going to guess that your ESCs don't support Dshot commands. At which point you go, yeah, but turtle mode works. Upgrade the firmware on your ESCs, or maybe it's just not going to work for you. I've heard some issues about that. Joe Larson, if you were here, I'd hug you. Everybody should get hugs who wants hugs. No problem. Let's see here. Flavio, Flavio Gamiero says, you said before that a cloned F3 is really bad. Well, it's the only FC that I have. Would you recommend anything to extend its lifetime or any maintenance? Flavio, I'm really sorry to tell you that your flight controller is bad. It's not bad because it's cloned. It's just bad because it's poorly made. Here's the good news. It is going to die. One day, you'll plug it in and it just won't turn on anymore, or your quad will fall out of the air. Now, I told you that's good news. It's good news because it's going to make your decision for you. What are you going to do then? You're going to spend $15 on another one, and it's going to die. It's just going to keep happening. So what you do is you go to my website, FPVKnowItAll.com. In the section for flight controllers, I have one down there. It is my cheapest worth having. It's just the ultimate budget. I think it's the Omnibus F3 or the Omnibus F4 clone. It's also a clone. It's like $30. And so it's twice as expensive as the SP Racing F3 that you're using now, but it's not going to just die at the drop of a hat. You are going to spend $30. You're going to spend $45. You're going to keep spending $15 at a time, replacing that stupid SP Racing F3. So just cut your losses and buy a $30 Omnibus, and you'll be ahead. So that's the good news. 3D Dringen asks, do I need to calibrate Dshot 600 in a 4-in-1 ESC? You do not ever need to calibrate Dshot. One of the nice things about Dshot is that it completely gets rid of all that calibration nonsense that you had to do with multi-shot. So no. Gal Kremer, I will get the Eachine EV200 at the same time you do. I have it on pre-order. They're not sending me a review copy. Multi-Easy Button says, you said you would do more vids about Crossfire. What will you go over? Well, I mean, I'm gonna talk about what Crossfire is and why it's good, what it can do, how to set it up, and then most importantly, I'm going to answer the question finally, for myself, personally answer the question of whether it is really awesomely more responsive and wonderful than SBuzz or not. Well, let me get back. I got so many questions coming in from my patrons. I want to make sure I get them. Have you heard anything about the update for the LaForge V4 and the Fatshark HD3? So LaForge released V4 of their module, and the Fatshark HD3 has some issue where so LaForge V4 has on-screen display. In the module, you can see what channel you're on, overlaid on the video, and then when you start clicking the buttons to change channels, it shows you in the goggles what the screen would show. There's an issue with Fatshark HD3 that they didn't discover until after they started shipping them, where the OSD sometimes has sync issues. I know that they're working on a fix. That's actually why I haven't gotten my LaForge V4 yet, because they don't want to send me one to review until they fix this issue. I know they're working on a fix. They're probably working night and day until they get one. I don't know. I haven't heard that the fix is out, and I don't know when they'll finish it. Julio, I think is your name. Julio Pazzetti asks, are we okay to go high volt low KV yet? You said you asked in the super chat. Would I miss that? How did I miss that in the super chat? I don't see your question. Well, I'm glad you got my question. Oh, there it is. Hello, there it is. I haven't done those tests yet. Those quads are literally in the mail. I'll be testing them. It'll probably take me a week or two to test them because I got to get together with Evan and get him to fly them and really ring them out. So we'll see about that. Is telemetry required for a LUA script? Asks Joshua Nixon. Very good question, Joshua. So telemetry, we think of telemetry as being data coming back from the flight controller to the transmitter, data like your battery voltage, your current, all that other stuff. But the telemetry link between the Taranis and the receiver is actually a two-way serial link. It's just we never bothered to use the other side of it before. So yes, telemetry is required in order to use the LUA script because the telemetry link is how the transmitter is how the LUA script communicates to the flight controller. That's this. Don't think of it like telemetry. Just think of it like a two-way serial link over the air. If your telemetry is not working, your LUA scripts will not work. Well, the LUA script will run. It just won't be able to actually do anything. So, how do I remove a bad bearing from my Emax 2205 motor? Stephen Pacheco asks, I believe that Project Blue Falcon has a video about that, and I would check that out. There are tools you can get to remove the bearings. There are also machinists' tricks like heating up the outside of the motor, the bearing race, and using like liquid nitrogen to cool the bearing so that it shrinks and the race contracts. There are various ways of getting it out. Just basically hammering it out is one way to do it. You destroy the bearing, but hey, who cares? It's probably already junk. Honestly, I don't change my bearings very often. It's one of the side effects of being a YouTuber is that I often just swap my motors for a new set before my bearings wear out. But even back when I was buying my own, I just was too lazy to bother. The bearings would get gravelly and grumbly, and a lot of times by the time the bearing is destroyed, the bell is also banged up and destroyed, or the shaft, and at that point, you kind of just might as well replace the motor. Denny FPV asks, why is my throttle having some kind of delay? When I punch, it responds instantly, but when I lower the throttle, the quad still accelerates. So the first thing I would want to do is I would want to make sure that the quadcopter actually perceived the throttle to be going down. Black box, you can do this with black box, or in the OSD, the throttle value, the throttle position is an OSD element you can turn on. So if you don't have black box, that's a way to do it. And what you're going to do is you're going to raise the throttle, and you'll see that the OSD or black box indicates that the throttle goes to 100%, and then you'll lower the throttle, and you just want to make sure it sees it going down. This may sound obvious, but anytime the quadcopter is not doing what you're commanding it to do, you got to make sure that it's seeing your stick inputs correctly, and sometimes it isn't. Then the next thing to do is what could cause the quad to continue to accelerate. If you had high D gain or a lot of vibration, the additional vibration from the motors spooling up could cause kind of a feedback situation where they continue to spool up even after you lower the throttle. But my first guess would be that you're actually like going into fail-safe temporarily. Maybe you have a loose wire, and the additional vibration of the higher throttle is causing the wire to get loose, and you're briefly fail-safing would be my first guess. Corey Poole. Oh, I'm almost caught up on my patrons. Corey Poole says, any recommendations on keeping a clean workbench? Or what do you use to store your spare parts? Well, my workbench is very seldom clean, but I have, you can see behind me right over there, I have one of those little pull-out things, and I keep lots of little parts in there, in that little tray. I have a magnetic knife rack that I use for my tools. It does mean all my screwdrivers and my other tools get magnetized, which might not be a good thing first if you're like working on sensitive electronics, but it doesn't really matter. But I think a knife rack, a magnetic knife rack, is a great way to store like screwdrivers and other tools like that. But mine isn't very organized. Last one of the patrons' questions, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do next. Steve Fonger asks, what grip tape do you use in your Taranis? I saw you turning it around. This grip tape is the Rotor Riot grip tape. Now, the Rotor Riot grip tape is, I think it's like 10 or 11 bucks for the set, and you can buy a whole roll of hockey tape. Let's just get hockey tape or skateboard grip tape. It's the same stuff. You can get a whole roll of that for like $3, right? This stuff, though, the reason you might spend like 10 or 11 bucks on this stuff is it's, as you can see, it's precision laser cut. It's exactly shaped right. And maybe you just don't want to do that yourself. It's especially nice because they give you two pieces here, so when your Taranis opens, it doesn't split in half. And when I first heard about this stuff, I thought it was such a gimmick. I really did. And they actually and they said, well, let me send it to you. I was like, fine. And then it sat on the shelf for months. And one day I was like, well, okay, I'll give it a try. And the second I held the Taranis in my hand, I was like, oh my God, this really works. And of course it does, especially if you get like sweaty hands or something. Now, of course, you've always got a neck strap, sure. But especially if it's nice to feel really like a positive grip on the radio. And I actually really do like it. Is it worth $10? Whatever it costs, I should double check the price before I start saying it's $10. I don't know, but you can get it over at the Rotor Riot store if that's something you're interested in. Okay, I need to take like a 5-minute break. So I'm going to put up the off-air card and tell you I will be back in 5 minutes, and I will make the official announcement about how to enter the giveaway for the Newbeedrone Acrobee. You probably guessed how to enter, but I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and then I'll be back. And I'm back. I'm back from my break. Pardon me. Let's see here. What is going on here? Let's look at the chat. Oh, right. So I said I was going to tell you about the giveaway. So I am giving this away. I'm not giving it away live here on the stream because I don't want to disadvantage all the people who couldn't make it. That's just not my style. So in order to enter the giveaway, you need to leave a comment. Leave a comment down below in the video. I don't think live stream comments count. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to wait for this to post. After the live stream, this will disappear. And then tomorrow morning, after it's finished processing, it'll appear again. Go leave a comment. It's just like any of my other giveaways. Leave one comment only. Official rules are down in the video description. YouTube actually requires me to put the official rules in the video description. And I will do a drawing. Today is Monday the 26th. I will do a drawing. This video will be back up on my channel on the 27th, Tuesday. So let's just say the 1st. I'll do a drawing on the 1st, and I will post a video to my channel, pardon me, announcing the winner of this Newbeedrone Acrobee. Thank you to Newbeedrone for giving this to you. I was going to say for giving this to me. A lot of times I like to claim credit for the giveaways. I'm like, you know, these vendors, I went to bat for you guys, and I insisted that they do a giveaway. And that's true. Sometimes I do that. I'm always trying to look out for you guys. But in this case, Newbeedrone just literally threw this in with my order and said, hey, you want to do a giveaway? So kudos to Newbeedrone for that. Newbeedrone makes my favorite neck strap. This is my favorite neck strap. I love this buckle. I love how it drops off here. It is especially useful. Some people say, well, why don't you just use the clip? Yeah, okay. I don't know why. I just don't like doing that. It's especially useful, though, if you've got the Horus X10, because the Horus doesn't, it can't take that little clip. It wouldn't fit. You have to use like a slit ring, like a key ring. So having the strap drop off like that is really nice. Anyway. Max G, did you say you thought I don't like Botgrinder? Where do you guys get this stuff? I hear all these stories about drama that didn't happen. About how so-and-so hates so-and-so. Taylor Swift hates Katie. No, anyway. I don't know where you... Well, I know. Botgrinder's awesome. I got to meet Botgrinder in the Atlanta Quad Camp. He is as cool in person as he is in his videos. He's pretty much the same. Don't try and get him out of bed before 2 p.m., but other than that. Jay Bender says, I wrote you a comment about battery testing. I still think you should test single cells and not the pack, or at least monitor every single cell's voltage. Jay Bender, that is not something that the battery tester that I bought is capable of doing. I'm not going to split out single cells, because if I take a pack and then I split the cells and I test the cells individually, people are going to go, well, you damaged it. You damaged it when you took it apart. And they're right. I mean, you can't do that. You can't dissect the pack and test the cells and then expect anybody to take the results as representative of what. So what I'm doing is I'm doing exactly what you would do when you buy a battery, as close as I can get. I'm buying the battery from the vendor using a secret shopper so that they don't know it's going to me. And then I take the battery and I'm going to discharge it in a controlled way. That's what I'm going to do. There may be advantages to testing the individual cells, but it's just not something I'm set up to do. I wish that this battery tester that I have could plug into the balance lead and measure the individual cells. That would be nice, but it can't do that, and that's the end of the day. Leon Schubert, I can read that. That's it. Is there any big difference, asks WildPix FPV, between Dshot 600 and Dshot 1200? I haven't done any rigorous testing. I haven't noticed any big difference. I don't know. One Night FPV, you enter the giveaway the same as always. Leave one comment down in the video description. I'll post the winner in a few days. Am I gonna do the inverter fix to my Horus? Okay, so here's the deal. This is actually really interesting. Not like the other stuff I always talk about. So there's a compatibility issue with the QX7 and the Horus X10. I'm not sure about the X12. There's a compatibility issue where if you try to use the LUA script to configure the module. So hang on, back up. There's one of the Crossfire modules is this guy, which is the little micro module, right? It's just a JR module. It fits in the radio. And the other one is the full-size module, okay? And the full-size module has a joystick on the back and an LCD screen, and you configure the module just using the joystick. That's it. The micro module you configure with the LUA script on your radio. Fine. The FrSky changed a component on the board of the radio to break that LUA script functionality. So when you try and run the LUA script to configure the module, it glitches out if the screen freezes up. And TBS's position, it used to work. The first generation of QX7s, it didn't have a problem. And then suddenly it stopped working. And TBS's position, and Trappy has said as much, is that FrSky did this intentionally to try and screw over Crossfire, because FrSky has their own L9R long-range 900 megahertz system that competes with Crossfire. I don't know if that's true or not, if they did it intentionally to screw them over or not. But the effect is that if you have a QX7 or a Horus X10 and you're using the micro module, you have to use software. You have to slow down the connection so that it can handle it. And the problem is if you've got Crossfire, you don't want to slow down the connection. So the fix is to get into your radio with a soldering iron and replace one of the transistors with a different one, a faster one, and TBS will they actually include that transistor with the micro module. You don't even have to buy it. The truth is they said, if we have them in stock, we include it. If we don't have them in stock, then you have to buy it separately. But not a lot of people want to take a soldering iron to their, and it's really fiddly soldering too. Stinger Swarm has a video about how to do the mod. It's really fiddly. So yeah, will I make a video about that? Well, the problem is I would have to pull apart my beautiful Horus X10 and risk ruining it to do the mod. I don't know how I feel about that. So that's your answer. Joe Larson, you should not feel like a loser for having an FS. Joe Larson says, I have an FSI6S. You guys make me feel like a loser. You cut that right out, Joe. You stop it. This is not about who has the sexiest equipment. It is not. It is about who is having the most fun, Joe. And that's the bottom line. It's not really a competition anyway. It's about whether you're having fun. This is such an awesome hobby. The experience. Do you guys remember the first time you flew FPV and you're just like tooling around in a circle, but you feel like you're flying a fighter jet and you're Superman all combined, and then you land and you're like all sweaty and your heart's pounding, and literally all you did was take off and fly in a circle a couple times and land? That's what it's about. Do that with whatever equipment you've got. You know, if it's a FlySky, if it's a Crossfire, yes, the equipment is fun, but don't be embarrassed. Let's see. Any recommendations to do a grip tape? How are you going to orientate your TBS Crossfire antenna? Asked Nick Freeman. So there's a couple of ways to take that question. The Crossfire antenna, maybe you guys can weigh in the chat, because I actually haven't quite done a lot of research on this, but the Crossfire antenna, I believe, is ideally orientated vertical like this, and likewise on the quad. It's a polarization issue, I think, and that's for the best performance. However, one thing I do notice is that on my radio, at least, that puts it right up against the other antenna, and I got to wonder whether that's having some effect. I see a lot of, and the other thing is that putting it like in a bag or something, if it's vertical, it really gets in the way and you constantly be moving it. I see a lot of pilots flying with it horizontal like this on their radio. And on the quad, putting it vertical on the quad means that it hits the ground. So a lot of people put it horizontal on the quad. So my thinking is that vertical may be better performance, but a lot of people fly it horizontal for logistical reasons. And Crossfire has such insane range to begin with that even if you're losing some efficiency or something, if you're not doing long range, a lot of people are using Crossfire and they're not doing long range. They're doing like longer range, but they're not really doing like long range stuff. At which point you could probably have a lot of room to be inefficient because the link itself is so powerful. You also asked, are you going to do the L shape or the T shape? I'm going to do the T shape because that's how they ship the Immortal T. So that's just what I'm going to do. And that's what I see other pilots doing who seem to be having success. Yeah, Danbo, if I had a wing, then I think horizontal makes a little more sense. Number one, because the wing's orientation is not going to change. A quad, it's flippy floppy all over the place, so it kind of doesn't matter. And on a wing, it's also a little easier to get it mount it like through the wing. Daytona FPV, I'm not an expert on long range by any means. I'm not even an enthusiast, frankly. But what I've heard other people say is that horizontal polarization is more likely to have issues with multipathing than vertical. I don't know if that's true. Stealth FPV, my friend keeps getting RSSI low on the Crossfire Micro. Could you tell what the problem could be? I suspect you need to reorientate the antenna. Like I saw, hang on. Like I was at the park the other day with getting that black box data for my battery testing from Evan Turner, and Evan flies Crossfire on all of his race rigs, and he mounts his antenna like this on the back leg. And I said, you know, I see a lot of people, they mount it like off the back standoff, kind of like this, right? I don't know how to show you guys. They mount it kind of like this off the back standoff, below the prop line usually. He said, yeah, I tried it that way, and I got all kinds of RSSI or low link quality issues. And he said mounting it like this gave him the best results off the back of the leg. Some people mount it on their GoPro. They have a 3D printed GoPro case, so it's kind of up here near the front of the quad. But obviously, I haven't even flown Crossfire, so I'm not really qualified to give advice. But if you're getting low RSSI, I would think maybe moving your antenna. 900 megahertz is way more sensitive to antenna location, antenna, other stuff than like 2.4 gigahertz. So yeah. Danbo suggests, and you're right, Danbo, you should be using link quality or LQ, not RSSI. RSSI is just raw signal strength, which depending on if you're getting interference or noise, you could have a strong, imagine a scenario where somebody's shouting right in your ear, but at the same time you're at a rock concert and you still can't hear them. That's a case where the RSSI is high, but so is the noise, and the link quality is low. So if you're using Crossfire, don't use, I believe then this is the recommendation from TBS as well, don't use RSSI, don't use signal to noise ratio, use link quality as your primary metric for whether the link is healthy or not. Slippery FPV says use the micro antenna. It's easier to install. Let's see here. Crossfire micro antenna. You guys are going to just help me with all my problems. Yeah, so this is the micro antenna. Hang on, I'm bringing up a picture of it. Daytona FPV says on 900 megahertz, vertical is better as multipathing is cut down a lot, but it's a toss-up. Do you take multipathing, you take 20 dB loss on the cross polarization? Yeah, that's an interesting question. When you have two antennas, if this one is horizontally polarized and the quad is vertical or vice versa, you're going to take some polarization loss, maybe as much as 20 dB. If they're both horizontal, then you've got multipathing issues, so it's kind of a toss-up. What I think you should do is just like the micro receiver goes up to 100 milliwatts, the big receiver goes up to 2 watts. And my thinking is that unless you're really pushing range, unless you're trying to go 40 kilometers, just blast it out with power. And there you go. I hope that I will not have any range issues with Crossfire, because at 100 milliwatts, 900 megahertz, like I should be able to outrun my video link all day. And so as long as I've got video, I should just never get failsafe. Yeah, that's my hope. I was looking up the micro receiver antenna. Let me pull up a picture of that so you guys can see what we're talking about. here's the listing from Progressive RC, and it's this little thing here. And I think you actually are supposed to put it like at right angle to each other. Yeah, I don't know. Say it's easier to mount. I guess you do a right angle L. Yeah. RL says, wow, Joshua's wearing pants. I am wearing pants. I'm wearing pants more today than I was when I didn't have a full-time job. It's very interesting. I feel more motivated now when I get up and like put clothes on. Sometimes I even put shoes on, even though I'm not going out, just because being fully dressed kind of just like wakes my brain up in a way that, I don't know. I never used to do that when I had a regular job. Cowspur asks, gives two pounds in the super chat. I'm going to remind you guys, I try not to pander, but I'm going to remind you guys that the super chat is available. If you want to throw me a tip, it's down there in the chat. You click the $ or the euro or the pound when you do your chat. Hey, it's the middle of the stream. I'm going to remind you guys, I have a Patreon page over on Patreon. And the easiest thing actually to do is if you just go to my website, hang on. If you just go to my website, FPVKnowItAll.com, and over here in the About section, there's Support Me. And that page has all of the things that you can do to help me out, to keep doing this, to buy a house like Stu. Wait, I already own a house. Shit. The various ways you can help me, many of which don't cost you a single thing, like using my affiliate links. You can even send me cryptocurrency if you're one of those weirdos who likes cryptocurrency. So check that out. There's my little plug in the middle of the stream, fpvknowitall.com, under the About page. Support me. Very much appreciate it. Okay, back to the stream. Wild Picks, the super chat sign is $1 in Europe too. That is not okay. I really assume Google would show the local currency. That's not okay. Let's see here. I see some people talking about FrSky latency. That reminds me of something. I'm not going to make a video about this, but so have you guys heard that FrSky has low latency? Somebody said to me, he said everybody's going to Crossfire to get low latency because FrSky actually has pretty poor latency. There's an issue with OpenTX where OpenTX doesn't sync properly with the RF module. And between the radio and the actual radio module, some additional latency is added. And so there's videos out there that give the actual numbers, but it's like 40, 50 milliseconds latency, something for FrSky. And meanwhile, FrSky is down at like 15 milliseconds. And this person said, everybody's going to Crossfire for latency. Why not just go FrSky? One of the answers, there are many answers to that question. Like, I don't think FrSky has a great receiver selection. It's got a minimal receiver selection. But the other answer is, people have told me that FrSky latency actually goes way, way up as range increases. That if you're like, 1 foot from the receiver, then latency is great. But when you're actually flying, it goes way, way up. And I haven't seen anybody do a FrSky latency test that actually tests the effective range, whereas FrSky latency is more consistent, is what they're told. And now that I put it out there, maybe somebody will test it. VDub Spaz gave $5 in the super chat and said, how to Acro, Angle, and Horizon in Betaflight 3.2 transmitter 221 all-in-one switch. I'm going to have to try to you gave me $5, so I'm going to do my best. I kind of don't understand what you're saying. You have Acro, Angle, and Horizon in Betaflight 3.2, and you're using OpenTX 221, and you want an all-on-one switch. I have it set. Oh, that's no problem. But only moving 2 spots in Betaflight, not all 3. Well, that should be easy because you're just going to use a 3-position switch. You're going to use a 3-position switch, right? And when you set up the mixer, then you got the 3-position switch, and then in the modes tab, you're just going to have that. You should be able to see them move. Are you using a 2-position switch, I wonder? If you're only using a 2-position switch, then yeah. And then in the mixer, you want to just make sure that the source for the mixer is that switch. And then when you move the switch to the 3 positions, you should see the channel move to 3 positions. I hope I've answered your question. Well, let's see here. Alon Sharoni asks, I have an XSR on my new DYS F4 Pro V2 flight controller. I'm unable to get telemetry from it to my X9D Plus remote. It all works on the OSD, but not on the remote. Yeah, the OSD is self-contained. I'm going to guess that there are some command line options relating to telemetry that you sometimes need to change. So one of them is it's TLM underscore inverted. And there's another one, TLM underscore half duplex. Try changing TLM half duplex. I know you have to do that on my flight controller and the CL Racing F4. The command is TLM underscore half duplex. If you're not sure what that is, in the command line, type get TLM, get space TLM, and hit enter. And it'll show you all of the options that have TLM in it. And you'll look and you'll go, oh, there it is, TLM underscore half duplex. Try setting TLM underscore half duplex equals, I think it's on by default, and you'll change it to off. The DYS F4 Pro, I mean, I'm going to assume it has a telemetry pad. Hang on, let me look that up. DYS F4 Pro V2. I'm going to assume it has a telemetry pad, but let's make sure. I mean, surely it does. And then I would say if that still doesn't work, I would try using soft serial, because all these issues with inversion, here we'll go to Oscar Leong's site. He has everything. All these issues with inversion and all that nonsense go away when you're using soft serial. So the final workaround I would try is to use soft serial. Does this have a... Surely it has a telemetry pad. Come on. Where is it? S-Bus. It does. Does it not have a telemetry pad? All right, you guys in the chat can weigh in if I've missed something. But it doesn't look to me like this flight controller has an inverted telemetry pad for SmartPort. So I think you're going to either have to do the uninvert hack on your receiver, or you're going to have to use soft serial. So what I would do is I would use soft serial on the PPM pad. That's what I would try, because you're not using PPM, you're using S-Bus. And so the PPM pad is available, and what you can do, Maytech F405 SmartPort, you can follow essentially this exact instruction from this video. No, I'm seeing an ad because I'm in an incognito window. You can follow this exact video. The only thing that's going to change is that the pin number that you're going to use is going to be different for your flight controller. So you got to figure out what pin number the PPM pad is on. And here's how you're going to do that. I'll show you. Hang on. I need a flight controller with a PPM input here, but I don't have one. So we're going to use this Acrobee again. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the CLI. Come on now. Come on now. We're streaming. Pick it up. There we go. You're going to go to the CLI and you're going to type resource list. And you're going to look in the resource list for the PPM resource. Now this one doesn't have it because this flight controller doesn't have a PPM input. But somewhere over here, it's going to say, you know, it might not if you're not actually using it. Okay, hang on. Don't type resource list, just type resource. Okay. And it's going to show you here, resource PPM, and you're going to see the pin number, which is going to be something like A08. And then you're just going to type resource serial underscore TS, serial underscore TX11, and then that pin number. And that is going to, well, anyway, the instructions are in the video, but the key thing you need to do is identify the pin number of the pin that you want to reassign. So if it's the PPM pin, you're going to look in the resource command and see what pin number that is. Okay. That's how you do that. The Maytech F4 AIO has huge noise issues, though, doesn't it? Let's see. Is the hobby going to 16:9 or 4:3 camera aspect ratios? I know the answer to this. The hobby is going to 16:9 aspect ratio cameras. I can say that definitively. And it's not because pilots like them better, and it's not because they're better in some technical way. I believe that it's not going to be, I don't know the time frame. I believe that the manufacturers are going to stop making 4:3 sensors. Sony, whoever else who makes the sensors. I think they're going to stop making 4.3 sensors. And then eventually, it's going to be 2 years, it's going to be 5 years, I don't know. Eventually, you won't be able to buy 4.3 cameras anymore. Or if you buy a 4.3 camera, it's going to be a 16:9 sensor that's getting the edges chopped off. So I still love 4.3. I prefer 4.3, but I think this is just a prediction. I think we're going to see 4.3 go. Can you buy a, let me ask you this. Can you buy a 4.3 television today? Nope. Not really. I mean, probably, but not really. They're all widescreen, aren't they? I think the cameras are going to do the same thing. Matt Sutherland asks, my memory isn't what it was. What was the verdict for the FrSky RXSR stock antennas? My verdict in that antenna testing was that I didn't notice a difference. There were all kinds of flaws and inaccuracies in that testing, but I didn't notice a difference. And what that says is that if there is a difference, it's less than my margin of error, which granted was substantial. But some people were saying, oh my God, the range is so bad with the RXSR. Oh my God, it's so short. And then I put the new antennas on and it was wonderful. And my point with the testing was I didn't have that experience. They were about the same in my testing. So there's a lot more to say about that, but there's a lot more testing to be done. But in my case, I did not prove the hypothesis that RXSR antennas are categorically wrong. Let's talk about filters, huh? You guys want to talk about filters? Red Warrior FPV asks, what is the biquad RC plus FIR2 filter? So, Kalman filters, biquad filters. Here's the bottom line: the biquad filter is basically just another low pass filter. That's really all it is. I actually had a great conversation last night with thank you to Andrei Mironov. Who goes by Dshot. He's one of the developers. And you guys think I'm really smart because I talk intelligently about these things. But half the time I just go pick a developer's brain and just ask them all kinds of questions for an hour. And then I package that down. And then I'm like, yes, you see, the phase delay is 45 degrees, 2 milliseconds. I'm just repeating something somebody told me. And so I'm faking it half the time. But hey, as long as the information is correct, who cares? They're not making videos. Anyway, the biquad FIR filter in Betaflight 3.3 is it's essentially just another low-pass filter. However, it also has 2-sample averaging. But that's really all it is. So why is it so freaking magical then? What they're doing is they're taking the PT1 low-pass filter that we already have, and they're just stacking, they call it cascading another filter on top of it. So you have 2 filters together and you get more filtering, but it's essentially just creating a low pass with a much sharper roll off. So here's the question that I asked in this conversation. I'm like, that's all it is? He's like, yeah. What about notch filters? Well, he said actually his recommendation, I haven't tested this, but what he said is that if you're using the biquad FIR filter plus the PT1 filter, that's the regular gyro low pass, he suggests that you turn off the notches, and he even suggests you turn off the dynamic notch. And I was like, what? The dynamic notch? That's the new hotness. We're turning it off now? Are we just chasing our tails? And he said, well, you know, we just didn't think to do that. And so we'll see how it works. But, you know, for all the hype about Kalman filters, right now we're not doing any of that state estimation or anything. Really, all it's just, and this is true for raceflight as well. It's just a steep low pass, but it's a steep enough low pass that we can turn off the notches and get the notches are actually add a fair amount of delay. We can turn off the notches and maybe get a benefit. So we'll see as they come out. So then, what about like 32 kilohertz? Well, the idea is that now that we've got these steeper filters, we can go to 32 kilohertz, which is noisier, and we can, is there a performance advantage? I'm really looking forward to trying 32K and 8K on the same quadcopter with the same filtering, and seeing what the difference is. I talked about the drone drop and Butterflight earlier in the stream. For you guys who have come along late in the stream, I'm going to be doing, starting this week, I'm going to be doing unboxings of the drone drops. Drone drop asked me to review their stuff, and I was like, I don't know, it's just, you know, but I said, okay, here's the deal. I'll do an unboxing. I'll just show everybody what's in it. It's not really a review, and I'll do a giveaway every month. So we're going to be giving away a couple of drone drops to you guys, and I'm going to be doing an unboxing. So if you're like, well, what comes in it? What do I get? Well, you're going to find out. So that's why the drone drop box is back there. That's coming this week. Yeah. Rab FPV is talking to Joe Larson about using an ad blocker on YouTube. I use ad blockers. I mean, I actually have a YouTube Red subscription, which means I don't see ads on YouTube anyway. YouTube Red is pretty cool. It means that you can download videos to watch offline using the YouTube app. And you know how annoying it is when you're watching a video on your phone and you turn the screen off on the phone and the video stops playing? YouTube Red lets you continue to listen to the videos in the background. So that's kind of nice. But the main thing YouTube Red does is you pay like, I think it's like $7 or $8 a month, or you can get your whole family on it for like $14. And it means that you never see ads, and the YouTubers you watch get a cut of that, basically. And it's way more money than that. You're like, well, I just watch the ads. Ads don't pay anything, except that when you have 60,000 people watching ads, it adds up. Haha, no pun intended. But watching the ads is nice. But if you became a patron at the $1 a month level and you used an ad blocker, you'd be giving me way more money than you ever would give me by watching ads. So if you watch ads, I appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate whatever you do. But if you want to use an ad blocker with a clear conscience, either buy YouTube Red or become a $1 or $2 patron, and you're way ahead of the game. Okay. Let's see here. VW Spaz was asking about the 3-position switch. No, is that VW? He says he's using a 3-position switch, but Betaflight only moves it 2 spots. Then I would look at your mixer in the Taranis, and I would confirm that the Taranis channel monitor shows you moving to 3 positions, because Betaflight should be seeing whatever the receiver is putting out. So I think the mixer may not be. You may want to just delete that whole mixer line and recreate the mix from scratch. D. Lou gives $5 in the super chat. Thank you, D. Lou, and asks, how are the RCX NK2306 2400 kV motors feeling for freestyle? Let me show you that build real quick. Where is it? Here it is. This. Boom. Remember this build? The PID tuning for this build is coming to this week, I think. The video is done. I just got to figure out what day I'm going to release it. And this is the build I also did the Betaflight configuration, the ultimate configuration guide. This is the build I did with my flight controller, the iFlight transframe frame, and the RCX 2306 motors. So I've been a fan of RCX motors from My RC Mart, is who sells them. They were one of the first cheap motors I got when I was getting into the hobby. I couldn't afford $18-20 per motor, and Ryan Harrell, Quad McFly, recommended RCX as good quality budget motors, and they still are. These motors in Ryan Harrell, his website is miniquadtestbench.com. These motors, if you put up the response curve of this motor and a hype train motor, they are almost identical. And these are like a $13 motor. And the hype train is like a $25 motor. So why would you ever buy a hype train? It's a good question. The answer is that there's more to it than just the response curve. As I am finding as I go to tune this quadcopter has yaw twitches. And you got to ask yourself what that is. Is it my flight controller? Could be. But my flight controller has like the good gyro that's noise free. Is it the ESCs? Well, they're Wraith 32 ESCs. I suspect that it's the smoothness of the motors that is causing the yaw twitches. We're going to find out. So these motors are super powerful and they look real good on the bench, but then you put them in the air and they're maybe not as smooth as a more expensive motor. That doesn't mean I don't recommend them. For the price, they're amazing. But I think they're more like a racing motor, because if you're racing and you get a tiny bit of yaw twitch at low throttle, who cares, right? When are you ever at low throttle anyway when you're racing? But for freestyle, I actually think these may not be the best motors. And by the way, let me remind you, I have the 2207 version of that exact same motor that I am going to be switching out after I put some packs on it, these 2306s. And we're going to compare the 2306 to the 2207. So I'm looking forward to that. Rotor asks, is Kalman filter possible without a 32 kilohertz gyro? Yes, absolutely. The filtering still works just as good on an 8K gyro. The question is the 32K going to give us some advantage? And we don't know the answer to that until we do some testing. But the idea is that the low-pass filter, the new Biquad PT1, or we're calling it Kalman, but it's not Kalman anymore in Betaflight, the idea is that that's going to let you turn off some of the notches and get less latency and better performance. Skadoosh, OpenTX221 locks channels 2 and 3 together on one switch. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know what you're saying, David, because you can set the mixer up any way you want. I have OpenTX221 right here. I really don't think that's true. I'm looking at the mixer right now. No, I mean, the mixer is just going to do what it's told to do. What are you talking about? You think it's the Wraith ESCs, Regan? Yeah, it might be. If you have... Where's my freaking... Hang on. I can't... I'm doing 3 things at once. I'm looking at my channel monitor. No, all my aux channels work fine, David. I'm not sure what you're saying. Aux 2 and 3 are not at the same time. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay, Regan, Marsden Potts says, I think it's the Ray 32 ESCs causing your yaw twitches. I'm gonna if you have BLHeli 32 ESCs and you're getting issues like hot motors, like yaw twitches, try changing your BLHeli PWM frequency to 32 or 48 kilohertz. I've had a lot of people solve problems with their motors by raising the PWM frequency in BLHeli 32. Just something I'm throwing out. David Skadoosh says, when you set it up in Betaflight, it moves both switches. Maybe the Wizards is setting it up wrong, but you could set the mixer up however you want. Just delete the mixer line and make your own mixer. Raytor asks, are you flying Velocidrone? That reminds me. So I'm doing reviews of all the sims. And of course, me being me, it's taken me forever. I did the one of Liftoff, and now I'm working on the DRL simulator. And I have always been really down on the DRL simulator because I thought the physics were really bad. Part of the reason the physics were really bad is that they were based on the DRL Racer 2, which is a humongous, heavy freaking quad because it has to carry all that gear for the DRL television show. I've been flying the new DRL simulator, the one that you get on Steam, and yeah, it's not free anymore. It's like $20, but holy cow, it's way, way better. I'm having so much fun with it. I feel almost embarrassed to say this because when you ask people which simulator has the best physics, they all are like Velocidrone, Hot Props, Rotor Rush. Those are known as sims with really good physics. I think the DRL simulator physics are, I mean, here's how I judge the physics of a simulator. If I fly it and I'm always going like, crap, why did I crash? What the hell? I'm a better pilot than this. Then I feel like I blame the physics. And when I fly the DRL simulator, it just feels like I'm flying. So I would say if you are thinking about spending $20 on a simulator, it's really fun. It's a little bit video gamey, and by that I don't mean that the handling is bad or the physics are bad, but what I mean is like you got a racetrack and you're flying and you're trying to set a good time and you're trying to like you can race against other pilots on the leaderboard, so you can set it up so that it puts you in a heat with the 5 pilots who are close to you in the leaderboard, and you race against their ghost. So it's really fun to race against other people who are just slightly faster on the track than you and try and get your time up and try and climb the leaderboard. I'm having a great time. The physics are okay. The racetracks are really fun. I'm just really digging the DRL simulator right now. So that's going to be the next one I review. And Velocidrone is coming after that. There's a reason why I put off reviewing Velocidrone. I'm not going to tell you what the reason is, but Velocidrone will be after DRL. Let's see here. Crikey VO says my video blacks out. If your video blacks out, your camera or your video signal wire is probably coming disconnected. If your video goes to static, your video transmitter is losing power. What about Rotor Rush? Corey, man, Rotor Rush is a very, very good simulator. The physics on Rotor Rush are arguably the best. You really would have to get in there because, of course, in Velocidrone, you can tweak all the physics, and I don't think you can do that in Rotor Rush. I could be wrong about that. So in Velocidrone, you might be able to get it flying better by tweaking everything, but Rotor Rush is very good right out of the box. The key thing about Rotor Rush is that they have real racetracks. So, for example, the Multi-GP qualifier or the Multi-GP final track, they will work with Multi-GP or the other organizations to get that track in their simulator before anybody else. Nowadays, of course, with their track editors and other people will release tracks for other sims, but they'll also have, I think they have money competitions as well, where you actually race in the simulator for money. But I actually have heard of pilots using Rotor Rush to practice a track like that they're going to compete on in real life. So if you need a Quadbot FPV, if you need a sim that doesn't require a good computer, the best one is FPV Freerider. FPV Freerider was originally developed to run on smartphones. So it's very, very low graphics capabilities, and that's the one that you would need to check. BackRD FPV gives $5 in the super chat. Thank you very much, and asks, I fly a split 2 and I want a squished X frame to keep the props out of view in a unibody. Chameleon is too short for a 3-board stack. Recommendation. That's an interesting one. You want the old you know what here's what I got to say. You want a unibody. Dang, I was going to recommend the QAVR. Because I've flown that. It's a little older frame, but it's pretty roomy. What's a good frame that has the H style, with the props out of view, and a unibody? Let me throw it to the chat. Joe Larson, where can I get a simulator from my Xbox 360? I don't know about that. Let's see here. If you want to learn to fly, watch Kit FPV. Your skill level will go up fast. All right, I got to check that out. You can, Electrode FPV points out, you can get a Chameleon. I believe a Chameleon is a solid bottom, but he said he wants a higher deck. So you can't, the Chameleon is too short for a 3-board stack. And he wants to fly a split 2. So a Chameleon's a really good freestyle frame. Maybe what you want to do is don't use a 4-in-1 ESC, and then you can get the split and your flight controller and have the ESCs on the arms. QAV210. Oh, right. Of course, Chuck. I was going to recommend the QAV-R. The QAV210 is a great choice. It's a little bit of an older frame, but you kind of sound like that's what you want. A lot of people aren't making H-style frames now. They're making stretched X or pure X. The QAV210 is an H-style, so maybe that's something to look at. Avon 3-inch props, asks Colleen Innocencio. I'll tell you this, the 2-inch Avons on the Babyhawk R and the Diatone GTR90 are amazing. And lots of people I've talked to have backed me up that these are some of the best 2-inch props out there. So then are the Avon 3 inches the best 3 inches? Maybe. I actually didn't like the Avon 5-inch very much. They're kind of aggressive prop, and I think for racing, maybe they're good. Certainly for like top speed runs, they get the job done. But I felt like they were a little bit fragile. They were a little too easy to break. And so I didn't quite like them. And they're kind of expensive. But at the 2-inch level, you need the absolute best prop you can because, you got to make the most out of that surface area. And the difference in handling on the stock props versus the 2-inch Avons was night and day. If you have a 2-inch quad, and you haven't tried the 2-inch Avons, definitely give them a try. The only one that people that I think maybe gives them a run for their money, although I still don't think it's as good, is the Gem Fans. Is it the Gem Fan Hulkies? The 2-inch Gem Fans, they look kind of like the Wind Dancers. Those I saw a lot of people flying and liking. And I think they may be a little more durable than the Avons, but the Avons I think are the best. Jack Birchall asks, I'm having some problems controlling my quad. It seems much more sensitive than many other pilots when I see their videos. I've changed the throttle curve. Don't change the throttle curve, change your rates. So do a search for Joshua Bardwell Betaflight rates, and you'll find my video about setting up your rates. Probably what you need to do is reduce your RC rate or maybe add some expo. It's not just the throttle. It's your rates as well. Blue Jay asks, what do you think about a variable pitch quadcopter? Well, I mean, if you search for the Curtis Youngblood variable pitch quadcopter, it's out there, but I don't think we see a lot of people doing that now just because of the complexity and so forth. Chris Cirque asks, how's the diamond antenna for Crossfire? The diamond antenna is, it's got a little bit different coverage, it's a little higher gain, and it removes some of the nulls in the coverage. What I read is that they were getting some reports of just suddenly your link would crater and people would fail safe. And they found that there was a consistent position relative to the transmitter that was happening, and determined that there was a little bit of a null in the Immortal T's coverage pattern, and that Alex Grieve developed the diamond crossview antenna to deal with that. I haven't tried it. I will say this though, the diamond. Hang on. Here's the problem. Here's the problem I had with the diamond. If you just use the diamond like on a Taranis, you can see that's not so bad, but you're supposed to use the diamond like this, and it really gets in the way of the antenna. It's just kind of bonking around. So I put a little pigtail on it to get it up, but now it's kind of hanging up there. It's a little more unwieldy, a little bulkier, and a little harder to put like in a backpack or something. I'm going to try using the Immortal T and see how my range is, just because it's a little smaller and lighter and easier to handle. And I wonder, especially because I'm not doing long range stuff, I'm just doing 5 gigahertz video, if that'll be more than enough range for what I need. Let's see here. Kyrie XXL asks, when you tested the GT90 versus the Baby Hawk R, were they both flying on 3S450s? How was the flight time for the Baby Hawk? To tell you the truth, I don't remember the flight time. It was several minutes. I I was too busy flying and having a blast to actually notice the flight time. But I would tell you this, it's longer than I typically get on a 5-inch quad, so definitely more than 2 minutes. That's what I could tell you. Leon Schubert asks, hi Joshua, I'm having problems with my flight controller. It's heating up. Even when hooked up to the battery, there's no current in the 5-volt pads. What could cause it? If your flight controller is getting hot, it's got a short and it's dead. I'm sorry to tell you that. Your flight controller should never get hot. Your video transmitter, sure. If you plug in a battery and your flight controller instantly gets a hot spot, that's a short circuit. It's probably dead. Sorry. Yeah, Jason Wormsley, the GTR90 has the 1104 motors, and the Baby Hawk has the 1106 motors. So I think it would make sense that the GTR would last a little bit longer. But both of them lasted longer than I'm used to from a 5-inch. I mean, I would land and be like, ooh, that was a good session. And I'd like be at 15.3 volts. I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm going up again. So... what do you think about 1.3 gigahertz video from mini quads? Barat FPV. I saw a video once of a quad flying with 1.3 gigahertz video around a town, and this guy 1.3 gigahertz has so much range and penetration, it's insane. But the problem with 1.3 is the antennas are very large, and I don't know if there's a good solution for that on a mini quad. This was not a mini quad, so... if I was going for long range, 1.3 is certainly something I would look at, but I don't have any personal experience with it. That's for sure. Yeah, okay. If you have a linear voltage regulator, it can get hot, but not a switching regulator. I wouldn't expect that. Stardust FPV asks, I'm modding a LaForge into my box goggles. I need a battery. What do I need to buy? What I suggest you do is that you get some 18650 cells. Since you're modding your goggles, you're probably up to soldering batteries. You get some 18650 cells and just build your own battery pack. That's my suggestion. You can get them pretty cheaply. I suggest you get the protected cells. They'll have a protection circuit to prevent overcharging, undercharging, etc. Especially for something that's going to be on your face. Maybe that's a good idea. If you have, Francis' point of view says, I have a Maytech F405 plus Luminaire 35 amp 32-bit ESC, won't go above 30 amps total amp draw on the OSD. There's two things that may be going on here if your ESC won't go above 30 amps. Number one, your current sensor may be miscalibrated. If you search for Joshua Bardwell calibrate current sensor, you'll find my video showing how to calibrate the current sensor. A lot of times the default calibration for a current sensor is way, way off. The other thing that may be happening is a BLHeli 32 ESC may have a current limiter. And if that's turned on, it may be limiting your current, although I wouldn't expect it to limit it to 30 amps total. I would expect maybe 30 amps per ESC. So you should definitely look in BLHeli Suite and see if the current limiter is turned on. Ole Hartvik Olsen just gave 100 NOK. Let's look up what an NOK is and how much 100 of them are. It is $12. Thank you. It is a Norwegian krona. Oh, yeah, I should remember. I love krona. I don't know why I love the name of your currency. Gives 100 krona. Thank you so much. No question. Just gives 100 krona. Thank you. Jacob Schwanda asks, which frame would you recommend the most? The Remix, the Reverb, or the Rooster? Here's the thing. The Remix is a really super cool frame. Like, it's very hard to be innovative in the frame world because so much has already been done. And I got to give props to Tommy for coming up with the Remix. That being said, I don't like the Remix, at least in part because it puts the battery in line with the props. And Tommy, got a video. You guys are going to love this. I'm not going to show it yet. When I was at Quad Camp with Tommy, I said that to him, and he said, my battery never moves. Tommy is working on, I'm not even sure I'm supposed to say this. Tommy's working on a battery pad that he's going to, I think it's going to come out soon. He did a test where he put his battery on his quad with no battery strap, just the battery pad holding the battery on. And he ripped the crap out of a battery pack. I mean, he ripped like ripping balls ripped. The battery didn't even move. He said, see, I don't worry about it. So eventually he's going to hopefully release that product, and then I'm going to release that video. But I don't like the Remix because I worry about the props being in line with the battery. It's just not the style of thing. So then that leaves the Reverb or the Rooster. I would probably, can I say Chameleon? But if I got to pick between the Reverb or the Rooster, I'd probably take the Reverb, but I'd probably take the Chameleon over all of them. That's what I would say. Brad Barlow says, Joshua, I just purchased a FrSky X10S. Anything I ought to know? Well, I've got a video about setting it up with OpenTX, and I've got a review coming out this week. I want to remind you guys that the review is going to come out toward the end of this week, the review of the X10, but I'm going to be letting my email list have an early look, and if you guys want to go over to FPVKnowItAll.com, you can join my email list. If you do that today or tomorrow, you can go ahead. I'm not going to spam you. I'm not going to sell your emails. I'm just going to send you an article every week or two with some interesting stuff in it. But if you join the mailing list, you'll get an early look at that video if you want to beat the rush to run and buy it. Programmable LEDs through Betaflight or standard LEDs? Well, I mean, just take your pick. If you like programmable LEDs, they can do some cool things. Standard LEDs certainly have the advantage that you just need, you only need, like, power. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, Peter Anodon, I agree that there's innovation left to do in frames, but it's hard to be the guy who does it. It's easy to just, I still commend people who actually come up with interesting stuff in the frame world. Why no love for the Rooster? The main reason here, and I have a Rooster that I'm going to do a build video of for Armatan. Armatan hires me to make videos for them, for their channel, for their website. You can go over to Armatan's website. He's got a subsection for my videos, some tutorials and stuff. And I'm going to do a build of the Rooster for him. The one thing I dislike about the Rooster is that because of the modular arms, it takes up some of the space inside the frame. So the place where you put the receiver and the VTX and the Chameleon, you don't have that space in the Rooster. It's a little bit tighter, and I just like the Chameleon better. I like the solid bottom plate. Some people have you're probably expecting me to complain about the arms. Some people like the arms like move a 0.5 millimeter if you like wrench on them really hard. I don't care about that. That's nothing. That's a non-issue. People are blowing it out of proportion, I think. The original screws that were messed up, that was a real issue. But if you tighten the screws down and the arm still moves a 0.5 millimeter, it just is what it is. I'm not worried about that. I just think that I like the Chameleon is already a tight build, and then to then give up some deck space in the Rooster, I think it makes it a little harder to build. Yeah, and now they make a unibody Rooster and a changeable arm Chameleon, so I guess you can kind of just have it however you want, right? Edrone asks, what's your favorite low-budget FPV goggles? That is over at my Ultimate FPV shopping list over at my website. I will show you, and I'll tell you why I think the answer is what it is. So here in the goggles section, I've got my budget pick. It is the Attitude V4 with the True D module. And some of you are outraged right now and are going, what, you idiot? That's not the right answer. Okay, hang on. We can disagree. We can have all our own opinion. I think the Attitude V4 has a fairly large field of view. It's got like a 32-degree field of view. And remember, when you're comparing it against goggles like the Commander, a 32-degree diagonal field of view is different for a 4:3 screen versus a 16:9 screen. A 32-degree diagonal field of view on a 4:3 screen is going to be taller and larger. It's going to take up more of your vision than a 32-degree 16:9 screen like on the Commander. So the Attitude has a larger screen. If you're running 16:9 if you're running 16:9 cameras, then this may not be the pick for you. But I'm basing that on the assumption that people are more likely to be running 4:3. And then you put the True D module in it, which you could debate whether the True D, wouldn't you rather have the LaForge? But the True D just drops right into those goggles. And I think the advantage of having the module, I would rather have a goggle with a module than a goggle like the Commander with a built-in module or a Sky Zone, because I like the firmware updates. I like the features, the Quad Finder app, all that stuff that you get with the modules that you don't get with the built-in like a Commander. So that's what I would say. My budget pick is the Attitude V4 with like a True D module. Now, some of you are also irritated that that's like a $400 setup, which that's hardly budget or beginner. I feel like you give up a lot to save a little bit of money with goggles. So if you go down to the Commander is a fine goggle. I think you'll be happy with it if you buy it. But I would personally probably spend a little bit more to go with the Attitude. But there you go. That's the answer. Favorite low-budget FPV goggles. And by the way, you said low-budget goggles, and I went straight to Fat Shark-style goggles. If you want to go with something like a box goggle, that's really where you want to be for low budget. So the Ishin EV800D is at Banggood is $100, and the EV800, which is the same, it just doesn't have diversity, that one is like $60 or $70. That's great for the price. If you're really trying to get into the hobby on a budget, either of those are a great choice. And by the way, I asked my friend Xavier, Zav FPV, he flies box goggles and he flies micros. So I said to him, will you use your perspective as a box goggle pilot? Will you make a list of all the box goggles on the market and tell me which ones you think are really good? And he also agrees that the 800D is a great budget choice. So there you go. I think we are coming up here to the end of the second hour. And I think we're getting ready to wrap up. Yeah, the sun is out. Actually, I need to go outside. It's been getting warm here. We had an 80-degree day. I made a bet with Issa, who's my spouse. I made a bet that we would not have another freeze here in Knoxville. It was like 80 degrees. I got a little bit loopy with the good weather. Now it's like 60 degrees, which feels cold. And I said, I bet you we don't have another freeze, which is an ambitious. I said I'd rather lose an ambitious bet than win a safe bet. So there, I think I might lose, but I think spring is almost here, and I'm so looking forward to my first flying season of being a full-time YouTuber and full-time FPVer. I just want to let me as I get ready to sign off. I've answered all the questions. Let me just say, I'm so grateful to you guys for making it possible for me to do this. Literally every day I wake up. And by the way, I am working so much more now that I'm a full-timer than I ever did when I had a day job. I know that sounds backwards, but I'm working from the minute I get up, to the time I go to bed, with some family time carved out, because that's important. But basically, I have no hobbies. I do nothing except fly quads and make videos, and mostly make videos too. I've got to fly more. And it's such a privilege, and I'm so thankful to you guys for making it possible for me to do that. I love it. Every day I just get to do whatever I want, as long as what I want to do continues to be to make videos and help you guys out. I'm so looking forward to that. I have more plans for stuff that I'm now able to focus on with this extra time, and I can't talk about the plans, but let's just say they're extensions of what I do now, which is help educate and help you guys solve problems. There's only so much that one guy can do. I answer so many Facebook messages, emails. I probably spend 3 hours a day doing that. Like, I get up, I make a cup of coffee, I play with my son for a little while, and then I sit down with a cup of coffee and I spend maybe an hour to an hour and a half in the morning catching up on messages and emails. And then I turn it all off and I go work, because otherwise I'd just be interrupted all day. So if you guys ever have a period where you message me and I take a little while to get back to you, and you're like, he used to answer me immediately and now he's slower, that's why. It's because I'm getting so many messages. I just got to sometimes turn it off and work. And then in the evening, I do the same thing. I catch up. I empty out my inbox. But that is a limit to that. I can only answer. That doesn't scale. Eventually, I have no time left. So I'm trying to think of ways that I can continue to serve that mission of helping you guys and answering questions and educating without me having to be the one actually typing the messages. So that's all big long-term stuff, but it's stuff that I couldn't even think about if it weren't for you guys basically paying my rent, or mortgage as it were, making it possible for me to do this full-time, and I so appreciate it. It's such a privilege. Anyway, there you go. A little bit of gushing. That's it. We're going to sign off the live stream now. Thank you guys for watching. The DVR will be up tomorrow morning. That's when you'll go make your comment to enter the giveaway for the Newbeedrone Acrobee. Okay? Not this video. This is going to go away. The DVR will go up tomorrow morning. Look for that. That's it. We're out of here.